I'll never forget the way my daughter looked at me that Tuesday afternoon. She stood in my living room, the same room where I'd rocked her to sleep 30 years ago, holding a manila envelope like it was a weapon. Her eyes were cold, calculated, like she'd rehearsed this moment 100 times. "Dad, it's done. You need to move out by Friday." She forced this tight little smile, the kind you give a stranger, not your own father. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just looked at her and said, "If that's your decision, then I'll be ready." But here's what she didn't know, what nobody knew yet. A house I built brick by brick, with my own 2 hands over 10 years, sold without even asking me. That's family betrayal at its rawest. And when you've spent your whole life building something solid, you don't just let it collapse without a fight. If you've ever been pushed aside by the very people you sacrificed everything for, then you already know the weight I'm carrying right now. It's not anger, not yet anyway. It's something heavier, something that sits in your chest like a stone you can't cough up. It's the feeling of being erased from your own story, like everything you built suddenly doesn't matter anymore. I hope my story reminds you that dignity isn't something anyone can sell, not even your own blood. Because what happened to me, this family betrayal, it's not just about a house. It's about respect. It's about being seen. It's about knowing that the foundation you laid still holds weight, even when people try to tear it down from under you. Stay with me, because the truth didn't show up until the day of the hearing. And when it did, well, let's just say my daughter wasn't ready for it. If this story speaks to you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own home, go ahead and subscribe, because I share these true stories of justice to remind us that we're not alone in this fight. Let me tell you who I am, so you understand why this house means more to me than just 4 walls and a roof. My name's Richard. I'm 69 years old, and I spent 42 years working as a mechanic. I had my own shop. Nothing fancy, just a 2-bay garage on the edge of town where folks brought their trucks, their old Chevys, their farm equipment. I built that business from scratch, same way I built this house. Took me 10 years, 10 years of weekends, early mornings, late nights under work lights, laying every brick myself because I couldn't afford to hire it out. My wife, Linda, she'd bring me coffee in a thermos and sit on a folding chair, watching me work. She'd say, "Richard, you're building us a castle." And I'd laugh and say, "Castles don't have oil stains on the driveway." But she was right. This wasn't just construction. It was love made solid. Linda passed 3 years ago. Cancer. The kind that doesn't give you much time to say goodbye. And when she was gone, this house became the only place I still felt her. Her coffee mug still sits on the kitchen counter. Her garden tools are still in the shed. I keep everything the way she left it. Not because I'm stuck in the past, but because some things are worth preserving. I live alone now, and honestly, I'm fine with that. I keep the place spotless, floors swept, grass cut, gutters clean. I'm not one of those old men who lets things fall apart. I take pride in what I built. But my daughter, she's always been different. Ambitious, restless, the kind of person who sees a perfectly good thing and immediately wants to flip it, upgrade it, cash it in. She'd visit maybe once a month, and every time, she'd walk through the house like she was appraising it. "Dad, this place is worth a lot now. You could downsize. You could travel." I'd just smile and say, "I'm already where I want to be." But over the last year, something shifted. The visits got shorter. The conversations got colder. She started talking about responsibilities and what's practical and planning for the future. I didn't think much of it at first. Figured she was just stressed with her own life. But then the questions got sharper. "Dad, do you even have a will? Do you know what happens to this place if something happens to you?" I told her the truth. Linda and I had everything set up years ago. The house was protected. It was ours, and when I was gone, it'd be hers. But not before. She didn't like that answer. I could see it in her face. She wanted control now, not later. And that's when I started to realize this wasn't about helping me. This was about something else entirely. Something that looked a lot like greed dressed up as concern. A house is more than walls, you know. It's where your life settles into the wood. It's where you hear your wife's laugh echo in the hallway, even after she's gone. It's where you remember your daughter's first steps, her first words, the birthday parties, the Christmases, the quiet Sunday mornings. You don't just walk away from that because someone tells you it's time to move on. You don't let someone else decide what your memories are worth. And I wasn't about to start now, but I also wasn't naive. I could feel the pressure building. I could sense that my daughter was planning something, and whatever it wasn't going to be in my favor. So I did what I've always done when something's about to break. I stayed calm, I stayed quiet, and I started checking the foundation. Because here's the thing about revenge stories, the real ones, the ones that matter. They're not loud, they're not dramatic, they're patient. They're built on preparation, on knowing your structure, on understanding exactly where the load-bearing walls are. And I knew mine. I knew what Linda and I had put in place. I knew the protections we'd built into the deed, the clauses we'd signed, the conversations we'd had with our lawyer years ago when we were still young enough to think we'd never need them. I didn't know yet that my daughter was about to test every single one of those safeguards, but I was ready. And when the moment came, when she finally made her move, I didn't panic, I didn't crumble. I just waited for the truth to do what it does best. Show up exactly when it's needed most. It started small, the way these things always do, like a crack in the foundation you don't notice until water starts seeping through. My daughter's visits became less frequent, maybe once every 6 weeks instead of once a month. And when she did show up, she wasn't really there, you know. She'd walk through the house with her phone in her hand, distracted, like she was checking off a box on some to-do list. Just making sure you're okay, Dad. But her eyes weren't on me. They were on the walls, the floors, the windows. She was measuring something, and it wasn't my well-being. The conversation shifted too. She stopped asking about my health or how I was spending my days. Instead, it was all about money. Dad, property taxes must be killing you. Utilities too, right? This place is too big for one person. I'd shrug it off, tell her I was managing just fine, that I'd been taking care of myself long before she was born. But she'd push. You're being stubborn. You need to think about what's practical. Practical. That word started showing up in every conversation, like she'd rehearsed it. Then one afternoon, I'm at the hardware store picking up some wood stain, and Earl, the guy who's owned that place for 30 years, he pulls me aside. "Richard," he says, real quiet-like, "I don't want to stick my nose where it doesn't belong, but your daughter was in here last week asking about contractors." I freeze. "Contractors?" He nods. "Yeah, said she was looking into some renovations, wanted names of people who do quick flips." My stomach drops. I thank Earl, head home, and that's when I start putting the pieces together. She wasn't asking about contractors for me. She was asking for herself. She was already planning what she'd do with this house, my house, before I was even gone. That's when family betrayal stops being a concept and becomes a cold, hard reality, sitting in your gut like a stone. I didn't confront her right away. I'm not the type to go off half-cocked. I needed to know more. So I started paying closer attention. A few weeks later, she shows up unannounced, which she never does, and she's got this guy with her. Tall, slicked back hair, expensive suit, the kind of smile that doesn't reach his eyes. "Dad, this is Marcus. He's a real estate consultant. I asked him to stop by and give us an idea of what the house might be worth." I look at her. "Us." She doesn't blink. "Yeah, Dad, us. You know, for planning purposes." I let Marcus walk around, take his notes, snap his photos. The whole time, I'm watching my daughter, and she's watching him like a hawk watching a field mouse. When he's done, he gives me some number, something ridiculous, way more than I ever thought this place was worth. My daughter's eyes light up. "See, Dad? You're sitting on a gold mine. You could sell, downsize, and live comfortably for the rest of your life." I just nod. "Well, and I'll think about it. But I'm not thinking about selling. I'm thinking about why she brought a stranger into my home without asking. I'm thinking about why she's suddenly so interested in my comfort. And I'm thinking about those revenge stories you hear. The ones where someone you trust starts making decisions for you like you're already gone. That night, I pull out the old file cabinet in my office. The one Linda and I kept all our important papers in. Deeds, wills, insurance policies, everything. I find the folder marked property, and I start reading, really reading. Every clause, every line, every protection Linda and I put in place when we were younger and sharper and knew that family doesn't always mean loyalty. And there it is, clear as day. A clause that states this house cannot be sold, transferred, or mortgaged without my explicit written consent. Not verbal, written, signed, notarized. Linda had insisted on it years ago after her own father got swindled by a nephew who forged his signature. "Richard," she'd said, "people do terrible things when money's involved. Even family, especially family." I didn't want to believe her then, but I was starting to now. I made a copy of that document, folded it up, and tucked it into my wallet, just in case. The next time my daughter called, her tone was different. Sharper, more urgent. "Dad, I've been thinking. You really should consider Marcus's offer. I already reached out to a buyer, someone who's very interested." My hand tightens around the phone. "You did what?" She sighs, like I'm the one being unreasonable. "Dad, you wouldn't understand. This is for the best. You're not getting any younger, and this house is a burden you don't need." I try to stay calm. "If you needed money, you should have told me. We could have talked," but she cuts me off. "This isn't about me needing money. This is about you being realistic." And that's when I hear it. The edge in her voice, the impatience, the certainty that she's already won. She's not asking for my permission. She's telling me what's going to happen. And in that moment, I realize the foundation's already cracked. The load-bearing wall between us, the one built on trust, on respect, on love, it's compromised. And when a structure's compromised, you don't patch it with tape. You either rebuild it, or you let it collapse and see what's left standing. 3 days later, she shows up at my door without calling first. It's a Thursday morning, around 9, Dom, and I'm out back tending to Linda's rose bushes when I hear the car pull up. I wipe my hands on my jeans and walk around front. And there she is, my daughter, stepping out of her car with a leather folder tucked under her arm like she's closing a business deal. She doesn't hug me, doesn't ask how I'm doing, just walks straight past me into the house like she owns it. I follow her inside, and she's already sitting at my kitchen table, spreading out papers like she's setting up for a presentation. "Dad, sit down," she says, not even looking up. I sit, and that's when she slides the first document across the table. It's a sales contract. My house, my home, sold. I stare at the paper, reading the words but not really processing them. "What is this?" I ask, my voice steady, but my hands starting to shake. She leans back in her chair, arms crossed. "It's done, Dad. The house has been sold. The buyer wants to take possession by the end of the month. You've got 7 days to pack your things and figure out where you're going." I look up at her, searching her face for some sign of the little girl I used to know. The one I taught to ride a bike. The one I stayed up with when she had nightmares. The one I worked double shifts for so she could go to college. But she's not there. This woman sitting across from me is someone else entirely. "You sold my house," I say slowly, letting the words settle between us. "Without asking me." She sighs, like I'm being difficult. "Dad, we talked about this. You're not capable of making these decisions anymore. I'm doing what's best for you." I feel my jaw tighten. Best for me, or best for you? Her eyes flash, just for a second, and I see it. The truth she's been hiding behind all that fake concern. This isn't about helping me. This is about cashing in. This is family betrayal dressed up as responsibility. And she actually thinks I'm too old or too tired to see through it. "Dad," she says, her voice dropping into that patronizing tone people use with children. "Stop asking questions. Just pack. And then she smiles. That cold, calculated smile. The same one from the thumbnail. The one I'll never forget. I don't react the way she expects. I don't yell. I don't beg. I don't grab the papers and rip them up. I just sit there, looking at her, really looking at her. And I realize something important. She thinks she's won. She thinks because I'm quiet, because I'm not fighting back, that I've accepted defeat. She's mistaken my silence for weakness. And that's her first mistake. All right, I say quietly, if that's how it is. She blinks, surprised. That's it. You're not going to argue. I shake my head. No. If you've already made up your mind, then I guess there's nothing left to say. She stands up, gathering her papers. And for a moment, just a flicker, I see something like guilt cross her face, but it's gone as fast as it came. I'll check in with you in a few days, she says, heading for the door. But make sure you're packing. I watch her leave, watch her car pull out of the driveway. And then I sit there in the silence of my kitchen, the house Linda and I built together, and I let myself feel it, the weight of what just happened. But here's the thing about revenge stories that actually work. They're not built on emotion. They're built on preparation, on knowing your structure, on understanding exactly where the cracks are and how to expose them. And I've been preparing for this moment longer than my daughter realizes. See, when a load-bearing wall is compromised, you don't just slap some paint on it and hope it holds. You assess the damage. You bring in the right people. You document everything. And then, when the time is right, you let the truth do what it does best. Collapse the whole damn lie. So I don't panic. I don't fall apart. I walk into my office, pull out that file cabinet again, and I start making calls. The first one is to Jim Holloway, the lawyer who helped Linda and me set up our estate 20 years ago. He's retired now, living up in the mountains, but we've stayed in touch. He answers on the third ring. Richard, that you? His voice is warm, familiar. Yeah, Jim, it's me. Listen, I need your help. There's a pause. What's going on? I tell him everything. The visits, the pressure, the real estate consultant, the contract my daughter just shoved across my kitchen table. And when I'm done, there's a long silence on the other end. Then Jim says, "She can't do that, Richard. You know that, right?" I nod, even though he can't see me. I know, but she doesn't. Jim chuckles, low and knowing. Well then, sounds like it's time to remind her. We talk for another 20 minutes, going over the details, the protections Linda and I put in place, the clauses that make this whole sale null and void. And by the time I hang up, I feel something I haven't felt in weeks, solid ground beneath my feet. The next few days, I play along. I pack a few boxes, nothing important, just old magazines and things I don't need. When my daughter calls to check on me, I tell her I'm up getting ready. She sounds relieved, maybe even a little smug. Good, Dad. I'm proud of you for being mature about this. I almost laugh. Mature. She has no idea, but I don't say anything. I just let her believe she's in control. Because the best part of a controlled demolition isn't the explosion. It's the moment right before, sir, when everything's in place and the people who thought they were safe suddenly realize they're standing on a foundation that's about to give way. And my daughter, she's about to find out what happens when you try to tear down something that was built to last. The hearing's in 6 days. And when she walks into that courtroom, when she sees who's sitting beside me, when she realizes that every signature she forged, every lie she told, every shortcut she took is about to come crashing down on her, well, that's when the real story begins. That's when family revenge stops being a concept and becomes justice. The next morning, I wake up early like I always do, around 5:30, before the sun's even thinking about coming up. I make my coffee, sit at the kitchen table, and I just breathe. There's a strange kind of peace that comes when you stop fighting the current and start swimming with it. My daughter thinks I've given up. She thinks the old man's finally broken, that he's too tired to resist, too scared to push back. And you know what? I let her think that, because sometimes the strongest move you can make is to let people underestimate you. I don't call her. I don't text. I don't send angry messages or demand explanations. I just go about my days like nothing's changed. I water Linda's roses. I sweep the porch. I organize my tools in the garage. And every evening, I sit in my office and go through those old files, the ones Linda and I put together years ago when we still thought we had all the time in the world. I read every clause, every signature, every protection we built into this property. And I make notes. Lots of notes. My daughter calls me twice that week, and both times, her voice has this edge of victory in it. "Dad, how's the packing going?" she asks, like she's checking on a project she's managing. "It's going," I tell her, keeping my voice flat, defeated even. "Good," she says, and I can practically hear her smiling through the phone. "I knew you'd come around. This is really for the best." I don't argue. I don't defend myself. I just say, and let her fill the silence with her own assumptions. She tells me she's already coordinated with the buyer, that the closing date is set, that everything's moving forward smoothly. "You'll be out by next Friday, right?" she asks. "I'll be ready," I say, and I mean it, just not in the way she thinks. Because here's what she doesn't understand about family betrayal. It's not just about what someone takes from you. It's about what they reveal about themselves in the taking. And my daughter, she's shown me exactly who she is. On Wednesday, I get a visit from a man I've never met. He knocks on my door around noon, wearing khakis and a polo shirt, holding a clipboard. "Mr. Richard," he says, "I'm Tony Breslin. I'm the buyer." I invite him in, offer him some coffee, and we sit in my living room, the same room where my daughter delivered her verdict a week ago. Tony's a nice enough guy, maybe mid-40s, works in tech, looking to relocate his family. He walks around the house like he's already picturing where his furniture will go, where his kids will play. And I feel bad for him. I really do, because he has no idea he's been lied to. "This is a beautiful place," he says, running his hand along the mantel Linda and I installed ourselves. "Your daughter said you were ready to move on, start a new chapter." I nod slowly. "She said that, did she?" He smiles. "Yeah. She seemed really confident everything was in order, said the paperwork was all signed." I take a sip of my coffee and choose my words carefully. "Tony, can I ask you something? Did my daughter show you a notarized consent form with my signature on it?" He blinks. I'm not sure. My lawyer handled most of the documents." "Why?" I shake my head. "No reason, just curious. But I can see the seed of doubt I just planted." He leaves a few minutes later, and I watch him drive away, wondering if he'll call his lawyer, wondering if he'll start asking the right questions, wondering if he'll realize he's about to be part of a family revenge story he never signed up for. That night, I sit in Linda's chair, the one by the window where she used to read, and I think about what she'd say if she were here. She'd probably tell me I'm being too calm, that I should have blown up at our daughter the second she walked in with those papers. But Linda also knew me better than anyone. She knew I don't explode, I don't crumble. I assess, I plan, I wait for the right moment. "You're like a demolition expert," she used to joke. "You don't just tear things down. You figure out exactly where to place the charges so the whole thing falls in on itself." She was right. And that's exactly what I'm doing now. I'm not fighting my daughter head on. I'm not screaming about injustice or waving my fists in the air. I'm letting her build her case, letting her think she's got everything locked down, letting her walk further and further out onto a structure she doesn't realize is already compromised. Because when the foundation cracks, when the load-bearing walls give way, when the whole thing collapses, she's going to be standing right in the middle of it. Friday afternoon, I get everything ready. I pull out my best shirt, the one I wore to Linda's funeral, and I press it myself, nice and crisp. I shine my shoes. I print out copies of every document Jim and I went over, and I put them in a folder marked Evidence. I'm not packing boxes anymore. I'm preparing for war, and it's not the loud kind, the kind with shouting and threats. It's the quiet kind, the kind that happens in a courtroom, with a judge, with lawyers, with facts that can't be argued away. My daughter calls one more time that evening. "Dad, I'll see you Monday, okay? The closing's at 10. You should be out by then." I pause, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make her wonder. Then I say, "I'll be there Monday. Don't worry." She exhales, relieved. "Good. I'm glad you're finally being reasonable about this." Reasonable. That word again. I almost laugh, because what she's about to find out is that I've been reasonable this whole time. I've been following the rules, honoring the protections Linda and I put in place, respecting the law. She's the one who took shortcuts. She's the one who thought she could bypass the foundation and still keep the building standing. And on Monday, when she walks into that courtroom and sees who's sitting beside me, when she realizes that every move she made was built on sand, that's when she'll understand what reasonable really means. Saturday morning, I wake up with a clarity I haven't felt in weeks. The kind of clarity that comes when you've stopped second-guessing yourself and you just know what needs to be done. I make my coffee, sit at the kitchen table, and I pull out my phone. Jim Holloway's number is already saved. But there's another call I need to make first. One I've been putting off because, honestly, I wasn't sure I'd need it. But now I do. I dial the number, and it rings 3 times before a familiar voice picks up. "Richard, is that really you?" It's David Chen, the lawyer who worked alongside Jim back in the day when Linda and I were setting up our estate. David's younger, sharper, still practicing full-time downtown. He's the kind of guy who doesn't just know the law. He knows how to make it work for you. "Yeah, David. It's me," I say, and I can hear the smile in his voice when he responds. "Man, it's been years. How have you been holding up?" We catch up for a minute, talk about Linda, about life, about how fast time moves. And then I get to the point. "David, I need your help. My daughter's trying to sell my house out from under me." There's a pause on the other end, and when he speaks again, his tone's shifted, professional, focused. "Tell me everything." So I do. I walk him through the whole story. The pressure, the real estate consultant, the contract she shoved across my table, the buyer who thinks everything's legitimate. And when I'm done, David lets out a low whistle. "Richard, she can't do that. You know that, right? The protections you and Linda put in place. They're ironclad." I nod, even though he can't see me. "I know, but she doesn't. And neither does the buyer." David's quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he says, "All right, here's what we're going to do. There's a hearing scheduled for Monday, right? The closing." I confirm. "Yeah, 10 a.m. He exhales. "Perfect. I'll file an emergency injunction first thing Monday morning. And Richard, I'm coming with you." My chest tightens, but it's not fear, it's relief. It's the feeling of knowing you're not alone in this fight. "You sure?" I ask. "Absolutely," he says. "This is exactly the kind of case I live for. Family betrayal, forged documents, someone thinking they can bypass the system. We're going to shut this down." We talk for another 20 minutes, going over strategy, documents, what to expect in court. David tells me to bring every piece of paper I have. The original deed, the consent clauses, the notarized protections Linda insisted on. "We're going to build a wall she can't climb over," he says. And for the first time in weeks, I feel like the foundation's solid again. Before we hang up, David says something that sticks with me. "Richard, your daughter made a mistake. She thought because you're older, because you're quiet, that you wouldn't fight back. But here's the thing about people like her. They always underestimate the ones who built the structure in the first place." I thank him, hang up, and sit there in the silence of my kitchen. Outside, the sun's coming up, casting long shadows across Linda's garden. And I think about what's coming, about walking into that courtroom, about my daughter's face when she sees David sitting beside me, about the moment she realizes that every shortcut she took, every lie she told, every assumption she made, it's all about to come crashing down. That afternoon, I do something I haven't done in a long time. I go through the photo albums Linda kept on the shelf in the living room. There's pictures of our daughter as a kid, smiling, laughing, holding up a drawing she made in school. There's one of the three of us standing in front of this house the day we finished building it, all of us covered in paint and dust, looking tired but happy. I stare at that photo for a long time, wondering where it all went wrong. Wondering when ambition turned into greed. Wondering if there was a moment I could have stepped in, said something, changed the trajectory. But I know the truth. You can't save someone from themselves. You can build them the strongest foundation in the world, but if they choose to tear it down for a quick profit, there's nothing you can do except protect what's yours. And that's exactly what I'm doing. This isn't about revenge stories in the dramatic sense. It's not about making her suffer or humiliating her publicly. It's about justice. It's about standing up and saying, "No, you don't get to do this." It's about showing her, and anyone else watching, that dignity isn't something you can sell, and respect isn't something you can take by force. Sunday night, I lay out my clothes for the morning. I set my alarm for 6 a.m. Even though I know I won't need it, I'll be awake long before then. I sit in Linda's chair one more time, looking out at the yard we built together, and I say a quiet prayer. Not for victory, exactly. Just for strength. For clarity. For the courage to see this through. And then I go to bed. And for the first time in weeks, I sleep soundly. Because I know what's coming. I know who's going to be sitting beside me in that courtroom. I know what documents David's going to present. I know the look on my daughter's face when she realizes the foundation she thought she could ignore is still standing, stronger than ever. And I know that when it's all over, when the judge makes his ruling, when the truth finally shows up the way it always does, she's going to understand something she should have learned a long time ago. You don't build a life on shortcuts. You don't build a legacy on lies. And you sure as hell don't tear down what someone spent a lifetime building and expect to walk away clean. Because sooner or later, the structure collapses. And when it does, the only ones left standing are the ones who respected the foundation from the start. Monday morning arrives like a storm you've been watching build on the horizon for days. I'm up at 5, dressed by 6, and sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee I barely touch. My hands are steady, my mind's clear, and there's this quiet certainty settling in my chest. The kind you get when you know you've done everything right, and now it's just a matter of letting the truth do its work. David texts me at 7:30. I'm filing the injunction now. Meet you at the courthouse at 9:45. We've got this. I read it twice, then slipped my phone into my pocket and grabbed the folder with all my documents. The deed, the consent clauses, the notarized protections Linda made me promise we'd never skip. Every piece of paper that proves my daughter didn't just cross a line, she bulldozed right through it. I lock the door behind me, take one last look at the house Linda and I built, and I drive downtown to face what's coming. The whole way there, I'm thinking about that phrase people throw around, family revenge. But this isn't revenge. Revenge is messy, emotional, destructive. This is something else entirely. This is justice. This is standing up and saying, "No, you don't get to do this to me." And honestly, that feels a whole lot better than revenge ever could. I pull into the courthouse parking lot at 9:30, and David's already there, leaning against his car with a briefcase in one hand and a coffee in the other. He's wearing a sharp suit, the kind that says he means business, and when he sees me, he grins. "Richard, you ready for this?" I nod. More than ready. We walk inside together, through the metal detectors, past the security guards, up the stairs to the 3rd floor where the hearing's being held. And the whole time, I'm calm, focused, because I know what's about to happen. We push through the double doors into the courtroom, and it's smaller than I expected. Just a few rows of benches, a judge's bench up front, a couple of tables for the lawyers. And sitting at one of those tables, looking like she just stepped out of a magazine, is my daughter. She's wearing a new outfit, something expensive, tailored, probably bought with money she was already counting from this sale, Her hair's perfect, her makeup's flawless, and she's got this little smile on her face, the kind that says she thinks she's already won. She glances over at me as I walk in, and for a second, that smile gets wider, smug, confident, like she's watching an old man shuffle in to sign away his dignity. But then David walks in behind me, and everything changes. Her eyes flick to him, and I actually watch, the color drain from her face. Her smile disappears. Her body goes rigid. She recognizes him. Of course she does. David Chen was at our house a dozen times when she was growing up, helping Linda and me with legal paperwork, estate planning, all the boring stuff kids don't pay attention to. But she's paying attention now, because she knows exactly what David being here means. It means I didn't just roll over. It means I didn't accept defeat. It means every assumption she made about me being too old, too tired, too broken to fight back. It was dead wrong. David sets his briefcase down on the table, opens it with a smooth click, and pulls out a stack of documents. He doesn't look at my daughter, doesn't acknowledge her, just arranges his papers like he's setting up pieces on a chessboard, and I sit down beside him, fold my hands on the table, and I wait. The judge walks in a few minutes later, a woman in her 60s, sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor. "All rise," the bailiff says. And we do. The hearing begins. My daughter's lawyer goes first, laying out the case like it's simple, straightforward, already decided. "Your Honor, this is a standard property transfer. The daughter, acting in her father's best interest, facilitated the sale of a home that had become too burdensome for him to maintain. All paperwork has been filed, the buyer is ready to close, and we're simply here to finalize the transaction." He sits down, looking pleased with himself. Then it's David's turn. He stands, buttons his jacket, and walks up to the judge's bench with a calm confidence that fills the room. "Your Honor, with all due respect, there's nothing standard about this case. Because the sale, my colleague just described, it's illegal." The room goes silent. My daughter's lawyer sits up straighter. My daughter herself looks like she's been slapped. David continues. "The property in question was placed under specific legal protections 20 years ago by Mr. Richard and his late wife, Linda. Those protections explicitly state that the home cannot be sold, transferred, or mortgaged without Mr. Richard's written, notarized consent." He slides a document across to the judge. "This is the original deed, Your Honor, and as you can see, there is no such consent on file." The judge takes the document, reads it carefully, then looks up. "Is this accurate?" she asks my daughter's lawyer. He fumbles with his papers, clearly caught off guard. "But, Your Honor, we were told—" "I'm not asking what you were told," the judge interrupts. "I'm asking if there's a notarized consent form." Silence. My daughter's face has gone from pale to white. Her hands are gripping the edge of the table so hard her knuckles are bloodless. David presses on. "Furthermore, Your Honor, the buyer in this transaction, Mr. Tony Breslin, was led to believe that all legal requirements had been met. He's an innocent party who's about to lose a significant amount of money because of fraudulent misrepresentation." He pulls out another document. "This is a statement from Mr. Breslin's attorney, confirming that no notarized consent was ever provided." The judge looks at my daughter now, and her expression is cold. "Ma'am, did you represent to the buyer that you had legal authority to sell this property?" My daughter opens her mouth, but nothing comes out. Her lawyer tries to step in, but the judge raises a hand. "I asked her, not you." Finally, my daughter finds her voice, and it's small, shaky, nothing like the confident tone she used when she told me to pack my things. I thought, he's my father. I thought I was helping him." David doesn't miss a beat. "Your Honor, intent doesn't override the law. The protections in place were designed specifically to prevent this kind of unauthorized transfer, and those protections hold." The judge nods, makes a note, then looks up. "The sale is hereby nullified. The property remains under Mr. Richard's sole ownership. All costs associated with this hearing, including legal fees, will be borne by the party who initiated the fraudulent sale. She bangs her gavel. We're adjourned. And just like that, it's over. The foundation my daughter thought she could ignore. It held. The shortcuts she took. They collapsed under the weight of the truth. I stand up, and David shakes my hand. Told you we'd shut it down, he says with a grin. I look over at my daughter, and she's still sitting there, frozen, staring at the table like she can't believe what just happened. Her lawyer's packing up his things, clearly frustrated. And the buyer, poor Tony Breslin, who's sitting in the back row. He just looks confused and relieved at the same time. I walk over to my daughter, and she finally looks up at me. There are tears in her eyes now, but I don't know if they're from shame or anger, or just the shock of losing. I lean down, keep my voice low, and I say the only thing that matters. I raised you to build, not to take shortcuts. She doesn't respond, just stares at me like she's seeing me for the first time. And maybe she is. Maybe this is the first time she's realized that being quiet doesn't mean being weak. That being old doesn't mean being powerless. That family betrayal doesn't go unpunished just because it's wrapped in concern. I turn and walk out of that courtroom with David beside me, and I don't look back. The days after the hearing are quiet, but it's a different kind of quiet than before. Not the silence of defeat, but the stillness that comes after a storm passes and you're left standing in the wreckage, realizing you survived. The sale's been nullified, the buyer's been refunded, and my daughter, well, she's responsible for all the legal costs, all the fees, all the mess she created when she thought she could bypass the foundation and still keep the building standing. Her lawyer sends me a formal apology, one of those carefully worded things that doesn't actually admit fault, but makes it clear they know they screwed up. I don't respond. There's nothing left to say. The house is mine, the deed's secure, and the protections Linda insisted on 20 years ago. They did exactly what they were designed to do. My daughter calls once, 3 days after the hearing, and her voice is different, smaller, uncertain, like she's finally realized what she lost wasn't just a legal case. Dad, she starts, but the words don't come. I let the silence stretch, give her space to fill it, but she can't. Finally, I say the only thing that matters. I raised you to build, not to take shortcuts. She's quiet for a long moment, and then she says, I know, and hangs up. I don't know if that's the beginning of something or the end, but either way, the foundation's been reset. A week later, I get a letter from Tony Breslin, the buyer who almost lost everything because of my daughter's lies. It's handwritten, which surprises me, and it's short. Mr. Richard, I'm sorry for what you went through. I had no idea. I hope you and your home find peace. I fold the letter, tuck it into the drawer with all the other important papers, and I realize something. This whole thing, this family betrayal, this fight, this moment of standing up when everyone expected me to fall. It wasn't just about keeping my house. It was about proving that dignity isn't something anyone can sell, not even your own blood. The costs fell where they should have, on the person who tried to cut corners, who thought ambition justified deception, who believed that being family meant she could take without asking. And now she knows better. I don't take pleasure in her pain, but I don't regret the outcome either. Because sometimes, the only way to teach someone the value of a foundation is to let them feel what happens when it's not there to catch them. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a gavel, a ruling, and the quiet knowledge that the structure you built, brick by brick, year by year, with love and sweat and sacrifice, it's still standing. And no one, not even your own daughter, can tear that down without your permission. I'm sitting in Linda's chair now, the one by the window where she used to read on Sunday mornings, and I'm looking out at the garden she planted 20 years ago. The roses are blooming again, red ones, her favorites. And the house is quiet in that good way, the way it used to be before all this started. I put her picture back on the mantel this morning, right where it belongs, and I swear I can almost hear her voice saying, I told you those protections would matter someday. She was right. She was always right. A home isn't something you inherit like a piece of furniture or a bank account. It's something you respect, something you honor, something you protect because it holds more than just walls and a roof. It holds memories, sacrifices, love that was built brick by brick over a lifetime. My daughter learned that the hard way, and maybe that's the lesson she needed. I don't know if we'll ever be close again, and honestly, I'm okay with that. Because some foundations, once they crack, they don't get rebuilt the same way. But I'm still here. This house is still standing. And if someone out there is watching this, if you've ever had someone try to take what you spent a lifetime building, if you've ever felt invisible in your own home or pushed aside by the very people you sacrificed everything for, I want you to know something. You're not alone. Dignity isn't something anyone can sell. Respect isn't something anyone can take by force, and when you stand on a foundation built with integrity, built with love, built the right way, it holds. It always holds. So tell me, where are you watching from? Drop a comment, hit that subscribe button if this story spoke to you, and remember, revenge stories aren't about tearing people down. They're about standing up when everyone expects you to fall, and that's something worth fighting for. Thank you for watching.